the drug habits some say they just can't be. Muggers and robbers, no place seems to be the same. But you've been my protection every step of the way. I want to say thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. It could have been me. I'm poor with no food and no clothes. I was alone without a career, just another number with a tragic end. But you didn't see me to let none of these things be. And every day by your power, Lord, you keep on keeping me. I want to say thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. I can sing, it could have been me. Outdoors with no food and no clothes. All right.
Whosoever shall believe in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Oh, he loves you. He loves you. Do you love him? Come on, give him a praise offering.
Welcome on the third night of winter Bible study. It's amazing what God can do. And in such a short period of time of study, you can learn so much when the presenter is anointed, when the presenter is inspirational, when the presenter is theologically trained, when the presenter has the hand of God on him, as does Dr. James Perkins. It's been a wonderful experience where much information has been imparted and impacted into our lives this week. We would ask that even though you may not have joined us every night, that you would share with your friends and your family and your loved ones what a wonderful experience this has been, and engage them in a fresh look at the Epistles of John. Welcome with me again for tonight's study, the renowned pastor, preacher, and social justice leader, Dr. James C. Perkins of Detroit, Michigan.
Very welcome. Once again to Dr. Hill, Dr. Wilson, and to all of the ministers who are present with us, and to all of you, the officers, members, and friends of the West End Baptist Church, and to all of you, my sisters and brothers in the Commonwealth of Faith. It has been a joy and a delight to be with you across these 3 evenings, and I want to take this moment to express again to Dr. Hill my gratitude for the honor of being invited to share with you in your winter Bible study. It is my prayer and hope that somehow during the course of these presentations, something has been said that will encourage you and that has enlightened you on your faith journey. I want you to know that these moments that I have been privileged to be with you, I consider to be enchanted moments, and they will have always a high and prominent place in my museum of memories. As always, I come to you tonight seeking and soliciting your prayers that God will bless our coming together. Now, for tonight, I want to read to you the second verse of the 3rd chapter of 1 John. The second verse of the 3rd chapter of 1 John, and it says, "Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is." And I want to use those words and talk to you tonight about our present and future glory. Our present and future glory. Now, thus far, we have focused on John's instructions on a few of the obligations that we have as disciples. We have looked at the necessity of fellowship with God and Jesus Christ as the foundation of the Christian life. In order to maintain and sustain our walk with God, we must have a personal devotional life. God has to be real to us in our everyday experience. And this can only happen as we practice the presence of God on a daily basis. We say he walks with me and he talks with me, and this is true only as we consistently seek his presence. Otherwise, they're just words which we repeat with no resonance of the true experience. We have looked at our obligation to live by the principle of love as the high ethical standard of the Christian life. God is love, John says, and he or she that loves is of God. When God indwells a person, the outward expression of his indwelling presence is a life of love. And so tonight we turn now to look at what John says may be described as the privilege, our privilege as disciples. Now we are the sons of God. We shall be like him. Remember that at the time of this writing, the first days of Christianity were over. In those first days, the church was still basking in the afterglow of the resurrection, and hence there was a glory and a splendor that appertained to the church like a radiant halo. By this time, however, being a Christian had become a habit, and the flame of devotion had died to a flicker. And we know how that is. For some people, church is just a habit. It's just something they're used to doing through the course of the week. It's just something they do. Some people do because they ain't got nothing better to do. Generally speaking, the church does not serve as the central place in our lives as it was with previous generations. The church used to be the center of the Black community. And now there's so many other things that claim our attention that church for many has become a second thought. As it has been said, John was dealing with second and third generation Christians, and they were being infiltrated and influenced by people who were not so much trying to destroy the church, but they were more or less called themselves improving the church. They tried to bring worldly philosophy of Gnosticism into the church. John was writing against these false teachers. They denied the messiahship of Jesus. Who is a liar? Demanded John, but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ. And just let me press the pause button here, my brothers and sisters, just long enough to say to you that I don't want no religion without Jesus. I'm a Jesus junkie. Give me Jesus in the morning. Give me Jesus in the noonday. Give me Jesus when the sun goes down. You can have this whole world, but give me Jesus. Talk about a child that do love Jesus. Here is one. They did not believe in the messiahship of Jesus. They did not believe in the incarnation of Jesus. Gnostic thought, which has so heavily influenced this church, believed that only spirit was good and all material, including the flesh, was evil. And given this mindset, incarnation was impossible. But John, in another of his writings, emphatically points out that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So John was writing to refocus the church on the central doctrines of the Christian faith. In his approach, he also adapts one of the prominent images of the time, light and darkness. He says, God is light and there is no darkness in him. And by this, John means several things. First, by saying that God is light, it tells us of God's splendor and his glory. There's nothing so glorious as a blaze of light piercing the darkness. To say that God is light is to tell us that God is sure splendor. It tells us that God is self-revealing. Light is seen above all things else. To say that God is light is to say that there is nothing secretive or hidden about God. God wants to be seen, and God wants to be reflected through the lives of his people. Jesus had said of himself on one occasion, I am the light of the world. But he also said of his disciples, ye are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And I don't know about you, but this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. All in my home, I'm going to let it shine. John's image of God as light tells us that God is pure and holy, and God's nature is pure. God's nature is holy. And as his disciples, we are to imitate him and reflect purity in our character and holiness in our lives. It tells us of the guidance of God. One of the functions of light is to show us the way. And God is our way on the highway of life. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Light is juxtaposed to darkness. John says of God, in him there is no darkness. And John uses darkness here to indicate the Christless life. He insists that if we know God, then we're to walk in the light. In other words, our character ought to reflect God. And so, addressing this false teaching, John says to his audience, now you are the sons of God. He's speaking about present privilege. In and of itself, these words contradict all the false teaching. Now are we the sons of God. False teaching would imply that if flesh is evil, we as physical beings could not be the children of God, who is spirit. But John says, now are we the sons of God, even as we are, flesh and blood, with all of our faults and foibles and failures. We are the sons and daughters of the Most High God. Now, all people are the children of God by creation, but some of us have been born again, and therefore we are children of God in a special relationship. And I don't know about you, but that's shouting news to me. It's a privilege to be called a child of God. It's a privilege to be able to say, Abba, Father. It's a privilege to be able to say, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. It's a privilege to be called a child of God. That's why I try to walk right. That's why I try to live right. That's why I try to live in such a way that my life reflects the goodness of the Lord. Now are we the sons of God. This is our present privilege, and this is our present glory. We must remember this, my brothers and sisters. Now are we the sons, the daughters of God. We must remember this because just like the people in John's day, life can be so tough. The way can get so hard. God can sometimes seem so distant that we feel lost and God forsaken. Have you ever felt like that? Song says, sometimes I feel like a motherless child, and sometimes I feel like a godless child, a long ways from home. There are a whole lot of people who feel that if I'm God's child, why am I going through this? If I'm God's child, why is this happening to me? But my brothers and sisters, just because you're God's child does not mean that you won't see some sunless days and some starless and moonless nights. It's in the midst of these spiritual struggles that the devil plays mind games with the children of God. And don't fool yourself, my brothers and sisters. Year 2021 and all, the devil is real. How else you explain all that's going on out here in this world? The devil is real. John said Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. The devil is real. He'll wreck your life. He'll play havoc with your dreams. He'll destroy your soul and send you to hell. There are a whole lot of people living in hell and catching hell right now because, like these people that John addressed, they got so smart they didn't believe the devil is real. The devil is real. And the devil loves nothing more than to play mind games with the children of God. He loves to use our circumstance to make us think that God is better to some than he is to us. He loves to make us doubt God and to question his goodness. He loves to make us think that God doesn't mean what he says in his word. He loves to make us question God and to doubt his goodness. And some people are not spiritually mature enough to admit that when it comes to God, they have questions. All of our lives, we're programmed. We've been told, child, you don't question God. But you know what? I've lived just long enough and I've been through just enough to recognize that God can handle our questions. When it comes to personal pain, we question God. Why me, Lord? When it comes to disappointment, when our faith hoped for one result and reality presented us with another result, we question God. When it comes to disillusionment, when we thought something was so real and it seemed so right, and yet it fizzled in our hands, we question God. But now are we the sons of God, and no matter what we experience, we must hold on to that fact and know that whatever you're going through, you are a child of God. John wanted us to know, first of all, that whatever we're going through is God's way of perfecting us. Though we are now the sons of God, we are not yet perfected. In fact, he says, it doesn't yet appear what we shall be. It may be that we will look at our circumstance and find it hard to believe that it somehow fits into some grand scheme or some set of master plans that God has for us. And it isn't that God intends for us to be going through whatever it is we're going through. God never intends for harm, evil, and injury to come our way. It's just that God uses the experiences that we are going through to perfect us for what he has in store for us. God has a masterpiece of a master plan for your life. But we put him in the position of having to work through the mess we make in order to fulfill that plan. Now are we the sons of God. It doth not yet appear what we shall be. God didn't intend for us to be in the mess we're in. But since we made a mess, God's going to have to use that mess in order to perfect us and fulfill the plan that he has for us. This is what Leslie Weatherhead calls God's circumstantial will. God's intentional will is the plan he had for our lives before we were born. God's circumstantial will is God at work in the mess we make, trying to get us to the point where he can fulfill the plan he intended for us in the beginning. We need to be reminded of this basic fact. We need to be reminded because we live and we worship in a spiritual atmosphere when it's not popular to admit that you heard it. In this spiritual atmosphere we're in, everybody is being blessed and highly favored. All of our emphasis is on prosperity and being blessed. We're hung up on the outside. We've learned how to look holy. We learn how to act holy. We learn all the up-to-date religious cliches. Some of us been anointed with so much oil, you can put us in a skillet and fry us like a piece of chicken. But despite all of that, and despite all of our high-powered praise, sometimes we wonder whether or not God knows where we are and knows what we're going through. And you must remember, my brothers and sisters, no matter what, don't let the devil fool you. Listen, God knows where you are. God knows what you're going through. God is just perfecting you. So when he finishes with you, you shall be like him. And I don't know about you, but I want to be like Jesus. I want to walk like him. I want to talk like him. I want to serve like him. I want to be, Lord, I want to be like Jesus in my heart. And praise God, I have a future anticipated hope. We shall be like him.
Let's hope he can get back on.
Or we
There
can
he
go,
is.
or we can go
Praise God.
in Christ and grow.
Yeah.
You don't become like him unless you're growing in him. Sometimes the situation we're in causes us to feel hurt and confused and frustrated. And this is how this church felt. But God's message to them was, don't let the situation and the false teachers and the false doctrine they're feeding you frustrate and disillusion you. Use your situation to grow. And that's what we have to do. This virus, the resurgence of racism, family challenges, financial crisis, whatever you're going through, we need to take our minds off of that and focus on Jesus and go on and live and grow. See, we always sitting around on the pity pot thinking about how bad things are for us. But feeling sorry for yourself won't help you to grow. You got to keep your eyes on the goal. We shall. We are not now, but we shall. Instead of just crying about the situation, we have to learn something while we're in the situation, and we've got to use the situation to grow. Let it stretch you. Let it challenge your imagination. Let it stretch your mind so you can think about the goodness of the Lord and all he's done for you. Let it stretch your soul so you can pray with more power. Let it make a better person out of you and not a bitter person. So many people are filled with bitterness and anger right now because something went wrong years ago and they never got over it. It doesn't matter how bad it is. You can let it teach you how to make the best of a bad situation. This is what John was doing. He had those who stood up against him, Diotrephes and so forth, but he didn't throw his hands up and give up on the people. He challenged them to think about what they were doing and grow closer to Christ. He said, focus on what you shall be. And God is telling us here how to use our mean time. You know, that mean time is that tween time, tween where you are and where you shall be. It is the time where we are and the time where we realize God's future for us. We shall be. You may not be where you want to be, but in the meantime, keep praying about it. You may not have all you want to have, but in the meantime, keep working on it. You may not feel the joy of your salvation, but in the meantime, keep on praising his name. And just know that while you pray and while you work and while you praise, in the meantime, God is going to bless you. In the meantime, God is going to stretch you. In the meantime, God is going to grow you. So when he brings you up and when he brings you out and when he brings you through whatever you're going through, you will be a better person, a stronger person, a more compassionate person, a wiser person than you were before you went through something. When he brings you out, you shall be like him. You know, a little eaglet, when it's in the shell, it is surrounded by darkness and mucus and slime. And when the life impulse kicks in and the little eaglet opens its eyes, it's frightened because all it can see is darkness and mucus. The little eaglet panics. In fact, it feels like it's going to suffocate. The little eaglet is confused. He tries to open his eyes, but mucus gets in his eyes. If he opens his mouth, mucus gets in his mouth. And a little eaglet just gives up and thinks that it's going to die. And it goes ahead and sucks up all of that mucus and slime and thinks it's going to die. But what the eaglet doesn't realize is that there are a whole lot of nutrients in that mucus and slime that causes it to grow and develop. And eventually that mucus and slime that he sucked up causes him to grow and break that shell open, and he stretches his wings and flies away. And my brothers and sisters, I don't care what you're going through. It looked like it's going to kill you, but suck it up and keep on keeping on, for you shall be like him. Finally, here John is telling us to live in expectation. John says, when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. He's telling us to live in expectation, to live in anticipation. We've got a glorious future ahead of us. For now are we the sons of God. That's a privilege. But we shall be like him. That's our glory. God's got a glorious future ahead for you and me, and you can expect it. Where you are now is not where you're going to be. You can expect to be somewhere else because God has promised it. The problem for us is that we don't know how to be blessed because we don't know how to expect. Now, every woman on this call tonight ought to be praising the Lord, because every woman in here on this call who has given birth to a baby knows what expecting is. When the word gets out that some woman is going to have a baby, we say so-and-so is expecting. And that means that she's living in hopeful anticipation that when those 9 months roll around, she will give birth to a son or a daughter. The problem is that after the baby is born, we stop expecting. So a whole lot of our children grow up to be nothing because we only expected to get them here and didn't expect to help them to make a future. But God says, I didn't just create you. I didn't just put you here and walk off to some remote corner in the universe. I'm with you, and I'm going to give you a future, for you shall be like him. It's a future of peace and not of evil. It's a future designed for your welfare and not your harm. It's a future of hope and not disappointment and despair. I've got a wonderful surprise for you on up ahead, God says, and you can expect it. Brothers and sisters, live in expectation and expect only the best, because that's all God's got to give. Live expecting that you will be blessed. I expect to be blessed. I expect my cup to overflow.
Yes.
I expect his goodness and his mercy.
Yes.
I expect that he will walk with me and talk with me.
Yes, sir.
I expect that no matter what I'm going through, that the Lord will make a way somehow.
Yes.
God promised it, and I believe it. We shall be like him. You know, in the realm of nature, there is a phenomenon that's called metamorphosis. And you can see this metamorphosis most prominently in the butterfly. When it is born, it is a hairy little creature crawling along the ground that we call a butterfly. And then after some days of being in that form, then that the shell forms around that butterfly. And then in that shell, then that egg, that caterpillar is being transformed. And one day the shell just breaks open, and there emerges out of that shell a colorful butterfly that expands its wings and flies away. And here we are now. We're in this stage of our metamorphosis. It does not yet appear what we shall be. But when he appears, when his feet touch the clouds, like that butterfly, we're going to break that shell open. My arms will fold under like little wings.
Yes.
And I'll fly away. Some
Yes.
sad morning when
Yes.
life is over, I'll fly away to that land on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Keep on struggling, my brothers and sisters. Now are we the sons of God.
Wow.
It does not yet appear, but we shall be. But when he appears, we shall be like him. We shall be like him. Oh, I want to see him.
Yes.
Look upon his face.
Yeah.
To sing forever of his amazing grace. Walk the streets
Walk
of
you
glory.
from glory.
Let me lift my voice. Cares are past. I'm
Yes.
home at last.
Yes.
Ever to rejoice. Oh, praise his name.
Yes.
Praise his name.
I want to see
Oh,
him.
praise his name.